Part 52. Everyone knows I'm a good man. Author, Tang Zhonmao. Chapter 512. As for what's going on in the capital recently, no one else can think of anything besides the fact that the 9th princess was deprived of her princess title and driven out of the capital together with the 9th prince consort. The 5th prince-in-law was scolded by His Majesty, the 8th princess and the 8th prince-in-law got into a fight. The eldest prince and the 2nd prince actually fought in the street after they disagreed. It was shocking that these princesses, who were not dignified, were actually kicked out of the capital. And the reason turned out to be disloyalty and unfilial piety. You know, throughout the ages, if parents say that their children are unfilial, that person will have to hold his head high for the rest of his life and will be insulted wherever he goes. Even if the parents go to the government, they can be convicted. The greatest majesty in the world said that his own daughter was unfaithful and unfilial. This incident was enough for the people of the capital to remember for 10 years. The 9th princess is wronged. If it's someone else, forget it. If she is asked to make peace with Li Chu, who would be willing to do so? I heard that the main reason why His Majesty is so angry is that the 9th prince consort spread this royal secret in order to rescue the 9th princess, which made His Majesty furious. When the people talked about it, they all felt that the 9th prince consort and the 9th princess were quite unjust. In their Feng country, women have always followed their husbands when they get married, and they have to marry someone else. It makes no sense to divorce and remarry anywhere. Although the 9th prince consort is doing this to His Majesty, I have to say quietly, if it were me in his place, I would do the same thing. After all, the Kingdom of Sun went too far that day, insisting on getting married to a married princess. If they hadn't come here, naturally there wouldn't have been so many troubles. The common people discussed it, and there was not much fluctuation in their hearts. After all, no matter how unjust the princess's consort was, His Majesty was the one who made the decision, and they did not dare to discuss it too much. The courtiers knew more and thought more. When the father of the 5th prince-in-law, a second-rank official, returned home, he said to his mummified young son, "It seems that you are not as courageous as Ji Chang's." Against the emperor, Ji Chang's was able to manipulate the people's power and force the emperor to give up sending the 9th princess to get married. In the past, they had underestimated this inconspicuous 9th prince consort. After raising the 5th prince for so many days, he was still languid. Xianglin had been taking care of him. After knowing that he had been injured somewhere after this experience and that he might never have another child in this life, his original attentiveness was also downgraded. By the time the 5th prince-in-law found out, she was already serving as someone else's concubine. If he is still well and in good health, this incident will at most make him feel a little green on the head. But his body was broken. As a man, and a powerful man in ancient times, the 5th prince consort could not accept it. At this time, Xianglin also directly came to a conversion target. His sensitive self-esteem was stabbed, and his condition, which was just fine, worsened again. The mother of the 5th prince consort was so angry that she wanted to go to Xianglin to settle the score, but was stopped by the 5th prince consort's father. "If you don't want this matter to cause a commotion in the city, and others know that our son can't have any more children in the future, then just go ahead and make a fuss." Only then did the mother of the 5th prince consort tolerate her anger for the time being. It's just that her son has suffered such a big loss, and it's impossible for her to let Panlin go. It's hard to make a fuss now. But in the future, when no one talks about her son's injury anymore, she will never let him go. The 5th prince-in-law's father didn't pay attention to this. The younger son was killed like this and will no longer be humane. Naturally, the marriage to the princess will not continue. If he tolerates this, how will other people view their family? He asked the 5th prince-in-law, "Will you still live with the princess in the future?" The 5th prince consort didn't think at all. "If my son wants to continue living the same life as before, it would be better for me to die now." Good. With his son's words, his father went to work. The Tianzhou kingdom's envoys had not yet left, and they had captured the city of Feng Kingdom. Feng Kingdom wanted them to spit out the meat in their mouths, and there would be a price to pay. Some people in the palace began to say that the fifth princess had been living in the palace since her quarrel with the fifth prince-in-law, and she also said that she had no fate with the prince-in-law. Now that there is such a commotion in Tianzhou Kingdom, the princess herself expressed her willingness to reconcile and marry Tianzhou Kingdom. The news spread quickly. Before concubine Yang heard about it, the father-in-law of the fifth prince consort had already found the emperor and said that since the princess had this idea, the couple couldn't get along anyway, and the minister's son would not serve the princess. In this case, they were willing to comply with the princess's wishes and give up the position of her husband to the king of Tianzhou Kingdom. By the way, I encouraged you again. Your Majesty, I really didn't expect that with so many princesses in your palace, in the end it was the most delicate fifth princess who asked for her hand in marriage. The princess is really like your Majesty, caring about the country and the people. Ba ba ba, ba ba ba. In short, he just took this matter and blew a rainbow fart at the emperor. The emperor may not know his thoughts, but he didn't bother to think about it. The Tianzhou kingdom held his land, and he could do something like force the ninth princess to get married, so naturally he didn't have much love for the fifth princess. He treats his daughters like pets. If he thinks you're good, he'll rub his head with a smile. If you think you can't do it, just abandon it. If the fifth princess is willing to get married, that would be great. No matter how hard concubine Yang worked, she was only raised as the daughter of a minor official. When she entered the palace and was lucky enough to give birth to the eldest prince, she secured her position without much hardship. How could she compete with the fifth prince consort's father, an old fox who had been involved in the court for many years? By the time she found out about the rumors, the emperor had already issued a decree to have the fifth princess and the Tianzhou kingdom be reunited. This news was no less than a thunderbolt for concubine Yang. How could her daughter, who had been pampered since she was a child, marry to such a remote place in Tianzhou Kingdom, and the other party was still a bad old man? The fifth princess also cried and fussed after hearing this. She shouted that she was already married, but the fifth prince-in-law turned around and sent a letter to Li, saying that the princess was willing to marry to Li in order to serve the country, and they admired her very much. Since the princess has lived in the palace for so many days and has made her attitude clear, they are not shy. For the sake of the country, they are willing to sacrifice the 5 princes-in-law to let him reconcile. This series of operations caught concubine Yang and her daughter off guard. Only then did they realize that the fall of the 5th prince consort's family to the 2nd prince was only the beginning. From the beginning, they had no intention of allowing the 5th princess and the 5th prince-in-law to continue their previous marriage. Concubine Yang went to see the emperor, but was praised by the emperor. Said that she and her daughter were loyal and patriotic, and were willing to sacrifice themselves for the country, etc. Even the eldest prince's reputation in the court was much higher because he had such a sister who asked for his hand in marriage. He was originally angry that the 5th prince consort's family had arranged for them to join him, but after he discovered that his sister's marriage was of great benefit to him, he gradually began to think that this was not a bad idea. He even went to persuade concubine Yang in turn. Although Tianzhou Kingdom is far away, it is very powerful. My sister is not wronged by marrying her. Concubine Yang never expected that her son would actually say these words. She couldn't believe it. That's your biological sister. How could you let her marry so far away? Besides, there are no official wives in Tianzhou Kingdom. If your sister gets married, she will have to be on an equal footing with a group of women. The eldest prince didn't take it seriously. Concubine, your vision is too narrow. Even if the Tianzhou Kingdom has no official wife, it doesn't matter. When we marry the princess of the Feng Kingdom, they still dare to treat her badly. Besides, My sister's temperament doesn't seem like she will suffer a disadvantage. Besides, it doesn't matter how far it is. No matter how far it is, she will still be a king's woman when she gets married. Can she be treated badly in terms of food, clothing, housing, and transportation? Concubine Yang almost felt sorry for her daughter. How can she be used to eating and living? Besides, your sister has a tough temper. That's because we support her. When she gets married to Tianzhou Kingdom, where the sky is high and the emperor is far away, she will be wronged. Who will support her? The eldest prince tried to persuade concubine Yang for a long time but failed to persuade her. He was really impatient and said, "You don't want to do this, and you don't want to do that either. If you had known this, why did you stop me when my father wanted to marry Zhang Xinyan to Tianzhou Kingdom? If you hadn't stopped Zhang Xinyan from marrying her, then what would you have done? Is there anything about my sister? It's okay now. We were tricked by the Cheng family. Everyone in the court knows that the fifth princess asked for a marriage. We can't talk about it at this time. How will she live in the capital in the future? How many people will I laugh at in the future?" In his words, he was simply blaming concubine Yang openly. Concubine Yang was dumbfounded by her son's training, with a look of disbelief on her face. "You actually blame me? If it weren't for you brothers and sisters, would I risk making His Majesty angry by persuading you? What does he know? That Zhang Xinyan is destined to be a queen. When she takes the throne, she and her children will be threatened." As soon as she knew that His Majesty wanted to marry her to the king of Tianzhou Kingdom, concubine Yang stopped her until her death. When I was stopped, I was still secretly thankful that fate was indeed powerful. Before, when Zhang Xinyan was not married, His Majesty wanted to give her a hand in marriage. Now that she is married, His Majesty actually wants to send her to get married. If she hadn't stopped him quickly, Zhang Xinyan would have been forced to follow that countryman Ji Chang's all his life. When she took the position of queen, she didn't know how to deal with them. The eldest prince did not understand concubine Yang. The second prince's side has been very lively recently. The two of them were competing in the ring, and he was eager to consolidate his position. Just sacrificing a sister, nothing more. After he ascended the throne, Tianzhou Kingdom saw that her brother was the emperor, so they naturally did not dare to neglect him. The conversation with concubine Yang failed, and the eldest prince walked away with an angry look on his face. When concubine Yang entered the back hall tiredly, she heard the sound of things being smashed inside before she had even taken 2 steps. The maid carefully came over, knelt down, and whispered, "The fifth princess is breaking things to vent her anger." Concubine Yang went in to persuade her, but when her daughter saw her, her face became even more angry. "How can my mother and concubine be so cruel? For my brother? She actually sacrificed me to get married. Now my brother is so proud in the court and everyone praises me. What about me? Do I deserve to get married?" Concubine Yang knew at a glance that she had heard that the eldest prince also advocated marriage and had misunderstood. She hurriedly wanted to explain, but the fifth princess couldn't listen at all. "If you say this is not true, then go and ask your father to take back his life. Zhang Xinyan, that bitch born of a wretched maid, wanted to get married, but you were able to persuade your father to change his mind. Now the one who is being sent to get married is, your dear daughter. Why are you mute? Why don't you let me get married? Who wants to marry the king of Tianzhou Kingdom? An old man who can be my grandfather? I would rather die than marry him." There was so much excitement in concubine Yang's palace that concubine Yang, who had always been happy and prosperous, suffered from headaches. It was said that she even suffered from headaches. It was quite cold in the cold palace. The mother of the 9th princess, Wang Kenu, has been relegated to the cold palace since her daughter was deprived of her title of princess that day. She actually thinks this is good. Wang Keinu always felt that the most wrong thing she had done in her life was to become a palace maid. It's okay to have been bullied all my life. After my daughter was born, she was treated coldly as a baby. She was bullied by her sisters when she was just learning to speak. When she grew up to be a cardamom girl, she didn't dare to make a wrong step. Even after she got married, she had to be affected by her mother, and she would be called into the palace to scold her from time to time. This is fine now. Wang Keinu sat on her knees on a worn futon, peeling beans and thinking. Although the child no longer has the title of princess, the consort loves her and treats her well. He is willing to fight against the emperor for her sake. Even if the two of them were kicked out of the capital and could only live as civilians for the rest of their lives, that would be good. At least in the future, no one will call her to the palace to bully her. Wang Keinu finished peeling the beans and closed her eyes and thought. May the gods and Buddhas in the sky bless my daughter with safety and good health. Bless my son-in-law to be single-minded throughout his life. When Wang Keinu was talking about it, Ji Chang's was lying in the haystack and looking down. Next to him, a girl dressed as a man was also lying down and asked him, "Sir, are you sure it's okay for us to dress up like this?" Ji Chang's turned to look at her. There were layers of color on her face, and she was wearing taupe clothes. Don't worry, it will definitely work. Ji Chang's is quite confident. The colors on our bodies are now more integrated with the colors of the landscape here. Even if we are closer, let alone being so far away, those people below can't see us. The girl nodded, although she still felt it was a bit unreliable, but thinking about it since the young master rescued them, it seemed that every unreliable decision proved to be very reliable in the end, so she continued to lie down. Around them, there were a group of colorfully painted people lying on their stomachs. These are all Ji Chang's legions. Hey, it's a legion, but it's actually a bit shabby. Because of what the emperor did, Ji Chang's had to make temporary plans in advance. He should have deployed at least 30,000 soldiers. Now there are only 300. To be honest, after Ji Chang settled Zhangxinyan, he came to his military base and saw more than 300 people standing sparsely. He felt a little helpless. But it doesn't matter. Ji Chang said to the girl, "Don't look at the small number of people we have now, but there will be more people in the future." The girl touched the straw on her head. "This is secondary, but master, do we really want to rob the next group of people? They don't look like they have any money." Ji Chang's looked down. Over there, a long line of people was walking towards them. These people have clear characteristics. They are all in ragged clothes and look haggard. They walk like zombies. They are wandering all the way here. They are full of old age. Those who don't know it think they have just crawled out of the grave. No matter how the girl looks at it, she thinks that these people are just ordinary refugees and there is nothing to rob. But they still knew what Ji Chang's was doing. He may be a bit of a dog, and would say damage to his opponents and even his own people. But he never hurt ordinary people. So the girl didn't think about the aspect of Ji Chang's is so crazy that he even robs refugees. But my mind wandered to, could it be that the identity of these refugees is just a disguise, and they are actually members of the imperial court? This reflects Ji Chang's management skills. 300 people, although few, but every one of them was loyal to him. Moreover, the equipment they carry, the martial arts they practice every day, and the fact that they eat meat every day to fill their stomachs, all of them are strong and healthy. It is no exaggeration to say that if these 300 people were to fight against 1,000 people from Feng Kingdom, they would be at the upper hand. Of course, Ji Chang's words have always been considered bragging. The idiot Huber doesn't think this is bragging. He had a more elegant way of putting it. Young master must be trying to boost morale. You are always like this. Every word you say is useful. Ji Chang's, who was actually telling the truth. Forget it, when they actually fight in the future, they will know that what they said is true. A soldier with a ruddy complexion and a strong body who is well equipped and well fed faces a skinny soldier with tattered clothes and blunt weapons. Even if there is a difference in numbers, they can still be pulled back. While they were ambushing and chatting here, over there, the refugees finally came into everyone's circle. Naturally, the reason why the girl was able to lie down next to Ji Chang's was not because of her ability to talk. From the moment the first round of refugees showed their heads, she had been counting them. After counting, she immediately said to Ji Chang's, "Sir, I think it's a bit confusing." Ji Chang stared at the refugees below with shining eyes. Unexpectedly, he might have thought that they were not refugees who looked poor, but a pile of gold. "Why are you hanging? It looks fine to me." "No, sir, we are only 300 people. Do you know how many people there are down there? At least 7,000, 7,000. The girl was desperate. How could 300 of us successfully rob 7,000 people? "Don't panic, don't be anxious, have more confidence in yourself." Ji Chang still looked calm. "How do you know you can't do something if you haven't tried it?" Girl. If this was not the master she was loyal to, she would really want to hit him. Ji Chang saw her speechless face, so he stopped teasing Menzi. There was nothing they could do. In order to lay an ambush, they had been lying here since dawn in the morning. They were not very tired. After all, they only had to leave people to observe. It would not affect other people's eating, drinking and sleeping. Mainly boring. When he was at his military base, which was large but with few people, he could at least watch everyone train. When he got bored, he used a sand table to find a few officers to practice fighting. But we can't make such a big noise here. If he doesn't have some fun, Ji Chang's will almost fall asleep. "Don't worry, it's not a big problem." The girl stopped asking any more questions. Anyone who has been around Ji Chang's for a long time knows that as long as he says it's not a big problem, no matter how difficult the dilemma may seem, he can get through it safely and smoothly. "Prepare." Ji Chang's raised the crutch in his hand. Yes, it was the crutch he made casually out of tree branches when he was bored. Then he waved hard. Rush. Before the refugees even reacted, the haystacks on the top of the mountain suddenly turned into well-equipped people with weapons. They were immediately surrounded. Well, 300 surrounded 7,000. Very good and strong. When the refugees saw what was going on, they were stunned. If I had to describe the expressions on their faces, it would probably be "We are so miserable and you still want to rob us? What are you doing?" Everyone. "Don't panic, we are just a friendly robbery, please cooperate." Ji Chang's took the lead and stood up. He wasn't afraid of people seeing what he looked like. Anyway, his face was so colorful that no one could tell anything. The refugees looked desolate, like quails, and no one dared to say a word. A young voice suddenly emerged from the crowd. "They only have a few hundred people, and there are thousands of us. Let's all come together. We will definitely win. Yo-ho." Ji Chang's became interested. "Although we only have a few hundred people, we have strength in our bodies and weapons in our hands. You guys can't stand firm, and you still want to defeat us. So what? You will always run out of strength. As long as we go together, you will definitely not be able to hold on in the end." A little man squeezed out, his face full of fighting spirit. "Folks, we can't just stand and wait to die. Let's all charge together. They can't beat us." Then he was held down by his father. "Sir, please don't argue with the child. This child is only 10 years old and is a little bolder. He didn't mean to collide with the adults." "Fine." Ji Chang's chuckled, "I'm brave enough to understand." The little man's face was full of anger. "Dad, how can you be so spineless? How can you bow your head? There are so many of us, so we are afraid of him." Ji Chang's clapped his hands. everyone, we are robbing, but what we are robbing is not money, but people. I need people under my command. They will provide food and accommodation, 1 tael a month, and 1 meal of meat in 3 days, with the rice open. If you are interested, sign up here. If you are not interested, I don't care if you are not interested. Anyway, we are robbing. Regardless of whether you do it voluntarily or not, you must leave me, young and old, male and female, and even newborn babies. Okay, you can line up according to age. The refugees' eyes immediately opened up. Young and strong people can still understand it, but the elderly and children also want it? A mother hugged her dying baby tightly, with hope in her eyes. Is there such a good thing in the world? She opened her mouth, I wish. I do, I do, I do. The little man who looked humiliated just now rushed out. You guys go ahead and rob me. I'm easy to rob, and I don't have much to eat. I only have one father in the family. We promise not to resist. They provide food, housing, and monthly payments, and they are also willing to take in the elderly and children. Such a rare person who is taken advantage of cannot be called a fool. Ji Chang's put down his crutches with satisfaction. Isn't there someone here? Behe free and fastest update, no anti-theft, no anti-theft. Everyone knows I'm a good man. Author, Tang Zhonmao. Chapter 513. Sir, will these people really surrender? The girl in charge of counting was concentrating on counting while looking back and forth with suspicion at the refugees who were walking this way under the arrangements of their people. There is no such thing as saying that you want to rob people, but once the conditions are stated, everyone is willing to stay. It's like child's play. Even if these people really want to stay, shouldn't they consider their character, ability, etc.? Moreover, they are rebelling. These people don't know about it yet. Once they know about it, they will definitely not want to stay. You are still too young. Seeing so many people entering his tent, Ji Chang's touched his non-existent beard with great satisfaction. Looking at his subordinates' puzzled looks, he patiently explained. It doesn't matter whether they are sincere or not, as long as they are my people now. If these people have land, they might have to find a way to make a splash. When these refugees were recruited by him, they were starving to death in minutes. I want a house but not a house, I want land but not a field. They themselves knew clearly that even if they made it all the way to the capital, they would either be stopped outside or sent somewhere to start a new life. Moving to a new place is not something you just talk about. A lot of people will die just walking there, and you may not be able to adapt to a new place after leaving your hometown. Ji Chang's gave them a way to survive, and anyone who wanted to live would desperately grab it. Of course, it doesn't matter if you don't want to catch it. He has become my person, no matter if he wants it or not, I won't let him go anyway. Listening to Ji Chang's unreasonable declaration, the girl only worried about one thing. Will those who want to leave but cannot leave become a disaster? How could be? Ji Chang's looked at her in surprise. When I conquer the world will be my people. How can they harm me? Girl. She choked hard. I think you are quite confident. Ji Chang's ignored her rich inner activities. He is still looking at his future people with great concern. Bring out our big pot, boil some ginger soup for them to drink, divide them according to their age, and give priority to the elderly and children. The girl didn't even ask why she didn't take care of the young and strong first because she could better help them. She finally discovered it. The mind of the young master I follow is different from that of the predecessors who have struggled on the road to success in the past generations. Others are focused on recruiting young and capable men. Ji Chang's is different. He accepted all the men, women, old and young, and even though others sacrificed the old man first, he actually took good care of the old man. If the seniors of the past generations saw this, they would definitely say that their young master is crazy. But looking at the old people who were sitting down tremblingly and began to eat the noodle soup, their faces gradually showed a look of relief, and they kept saying thank you to their people. The girl had to admit it again. It's good that the young master has a lot of brains. Brother, what do you do? Why do you recruit so many people? Can the elderly and children also use it? What exactly do we do? Can someone as old as me do the work? Ji Chang's took a nap, and when he walked to the main square, he saw the very backbone little man asking his soldiers around. Now that they, the refugees, have joined, they are our own people. The fat and strong soldier looked helpless, and it was obvious that he had been pestering him for a long time. It's useless for you to ask me these things. I only know that what the elderly and children do is not hard work, it's very light. If there are elderly people or people with physical disabilities and illnesses in your family, don't worry. Not only will our young master not let them do it, if they live, they will be treated by doctors. Is the treatment so good? The little man's eyes became brighter and brighter, curiosity written all over his face. What about those who don't have family to work with? What do they do? It's normal whether you have family or not. Stop pestering me. I have to go to the toilet. The little man, I happen to want to go to the toilet too, how about we talk while walking? Brother Bing. Ji Chang's coughed lightly. Brother Bing turned around and saw him. The expression on his face immediately turned respectful, and he quickly lowered his head. Young master. You go to the toilet, I told him. Brother Bing showed an expression of honor and relief on his face. He quickly took off the little man's hand on his arm, turned around and ran towards the school ground. Ji Chang's didn't remind him that that was not the direction of the toilet. He just looked directly at the little man. You are smart and should know that I don't need to trick you. If nothing else, if they really had any evil intentions, they wouldn't rush down the hillside. As long as they push rocks down the hillside and shoot arrows, they can still wipe out all these people, even if they are small in number and there are as many refugees as there are. The little man raised a flattering smile on his face. Young Master Mingjian, I'm not doubting anything, I just want to know what kind of work I want to do in the future. I feel close to such a kind person like you after just one glance. How could I think that I'm deceiving us? The expression on Ji Chang's face improved visibly with his flattery. The little man was delighted. Sure enough, it is always right to be nice and obedient. It seems that he successfully coaxed this young man, and the next step is to inquire. Ji Chang's, yes, what you said is quite pleasant. If you say a few more words, I would like to hear it. The little man. Again, let me say a few more words. Young master, you are really a rescuer. Saving me is like fire and water. And besides, you are the greatest good person in the world, a great good person. Although he read some books, it didn't last long before his family suffered a disaster. It took him a long time to stumble out these few sentences. Ji Chang's looked back at the young man who was silently following him. Remember everything. The young man quickly took out a pen and paper from the bag he was carrying and began to write quickly and skillfully. On a cool day, X month XX, X year, the young master passed by Fenyang Mountain and saw some refugees dying. He felt compassion and led everyone to rescue them and take them in. Refugee. He wrote this and looked up at the little man. What's your name? The little man, whose mind was full of passing by and somewhat, was suddenly asked, and he didn't react for a moment. He was confused for a few seconds before he answered carefully. My name is He Ergu. The young man was silent for a few seconds. Then he pretended that he had not heard the word Ergu and continued to write furiously. He, a refugee, immediately thanked the young master and said that the young master is a good person in this world. He is like a god coming to the world to help people in need. The gratitude in his heart cannot be expressed in words. He bursts into tears and even speaks incoherently. He Ergu. He watched helplessly as Ji Chang's waved his hands with a satisfied look on his face. "Oh, yes, this is the effect. It's not bad. I spent many days training you in vain." The young man nodded, then waved the charcoal pen in his hand. The young master sighed with a face, feeling ashamed that he was not worthy of such a high evaluation. This kind of character is truly a model for the world. Seeing that he finished writing and quickly closed it and took it back, he swallowed. "What are you writing?" The young man looked dignified. "Can't you see? I'm writing a diary." He diary. After the young man answered one word indifferently, he looked forward, as if he had entered a state of deep thought and would no longer pay attention to others. However, Ji Chang's, the protagonist in his diary, explained very kindly. "It's like this. There is a high probability that what we are doing will be judged by future generations. In order to prevent future generations from not knowing the inside story and misunderstanding our actions, I specially asked him to write some diaries for the convenience of future generations." He "Isn't this really a fake manual?" Ji Chang's was very confident and waved to him. Come on, patrol with me, and I'll tell you." During the inspection, he cautiously expressed his doubts, perhaps because he saw that Ji Chang's was quite kind. Ji Chang's was not angry as expected, and patted his thin shoulder. "Don't think so. This can only be said to be a little beautified at best. Everyone does this. I'm just learning from the successful experiences of my ancestors. Look at the founding emperor of the previous dynasty. He boasted that his mother dreamed that a white dragon entered her stomach the night before giving birth to him. Listen to his bragging. When he first got into trouble, the neighbors all exposed it, saying that his mother the night before I gave birth to him, I played leaf cards all night and didn't sleep at all." He followed Ji Chang's, who was moving very quickly. "This is quite difficult. After all, not everyone can walk as slowly as Ji Chang's and still look so graceful. The founding emperor of the previous dynasty said that he got lost in a peach blossom forest, and there was an old immortal inside. The old immortal pointed at him and said, 'Why did the real dragon emperor come in?' He also invited him to drink a glass of wine. Waiting until the wine when he wakes up, he gets into trouble. This exaggeration is even more exaggerated. Whose old god lives in a peach blossom forest? If he was really a real dragon emperor, how could he die in bed? His death was so disgraceful. It really brought disgrace to the real dragon emperor's face." Ji Chang's looked at He who was carefully slowing down and following him. "Do you know what the true dragon emperor was called before he changed his name?" He shook his head in confusion. "Ji Chang's, Zhang Daniu. Is it similar to your name? Nowadays, others only know that he is called Zhang Wu, the mighty emperor. Who knows that he has been called Zhang Daniu for 24 years? He stared in confusion as he listened, as if he understood something, but also as if he understood nothing. But I also knew that Ji Chang's must be telling him something by telling him so much. So he thought hard for half a minute before carefully asking. "Do you want to tell me not to listen to rumors, because no one knows whether these rumors are true or false?" "No." Ji Chang's said, "I want to say that throughout the ages, no matter what you do, publicity is important. Looking at you, you are quite talkative and thick-skinned. From now on, I will leave the work of the publicity and development department to you. You are not allowed to refuse. If you refuse, you will get nothing to eat. That's it." Ji Chang's was in a good mood, humming a song and leaving with his hands behind his back after getting rid of his job of fooling people. Only He was left stunned for a while, and then his blood began to boil. "Publicity and Development Department, although I don't know what this does. But is this also an errand?" He originally just saw that everyone was really settled and wanted to try to find a job. After all, although other people were also hungry and skinny, from his perspective, those tall, Middle-aged men must have an easier time finding jobs than he, a skinny kid like him. He didn't want to be left without a job, so he wanted to strike first. Unexpectedly, I found it. He was very happy. At this moment, he still didn't know how Ji Chang's had arranged for him to work with his mouth. After accepting 7,000 refugees, Ji Chang's was busy for more than a month before arranging all the people. Those who couldn't go to the battlefield were assigned to farming, and those who couldn't do heavy work were assigned to do light work. Children are divided into age categories: kindergarten for those under 7 years old, and classes for those over 7 years old. Female soldiers are also being recruited. Although there are many people talking about it, there are really many people who have signed up. After all, the reason why refugees are refugees is because their homes and fields are gone. These female soldiers who signed up also lost their families. Some are still young, have no worries, and have not been brainwashed for too long. Some have children and want to get good treatment for their children, and some have great personalities. Zhang Xinyan, who was still recovering from his illness, was very envious after hearing what Hanzu said about the female soldiers practicing in armor. She had never heard that women could serve as soldiers. It seemed that everyone had always assumed that only men could hold weapons. Hanzu, I want to go too. Zhang Xinyan is full of yearning. But her body's foundation was damaged when she was forced to kneel in the palace, so she could only take good care of it. Fortunately, he was young and the doctor Ji Chang's found was really capable. He said that he would get better in just a few months. Hanzu didn't expect that the princess, who had always been very timid, actually wanted to become a female soldier. You know, when she knew that the prince-in-law was planning to cause trouble, the princess was so frightened that she had nightmares for several nights. Princess, you are weak. Female soldiers have to train. You can't stand it? Zhang Xinyan was extra persistent this time. Nagay said that I will take good care of my body, and I will be healthy by then. Now I am no longer a princess. Others can do it, so can I. In the past few months, she had done countless firsts in her life. Leaving Beijing for the first time. Going shopping for the first time. Stepping on the snow for the first time. For the first time, a doctor gave her good medical treatment. For the first time, I knew that my husband was planning to rebel. Logically speaking, she is a princess and her husband is plotting to overthrow her father's dynasty. She should have mixed emotions in her heart. But maybe it's because her father has no paternal love for her at all, maybe it's because she saw too many refugees, victims, and poor people along the way, maybe it's because she knows a lot of news and sees clearly that even without her husband, the kingdom is falling. She actually accepted the news naturally. But I also had nightmares for several nights. Sometimes when she was a child, the fifth sister asked her to pick up a ball, but she couldn't find where the ball was. The fifth sister got angry and pushed her head into the water tank. Sometimes it is the last time I see my mother. She is only in her early 30s, but she has already grown white strands in her hair. She smiled gently at her, with tears in her eyes, but her smile was particularly brisk. It doesn't matter if you leave, go far away, and never come back. Sometimes it was the scene where she fell to the ground in a state of embarrassment after not having a drop of water for 2 days. Nagasawa came in and picked her up. The palace attendant next to her was persuading. Princess is just kneeling down for a few days. Why should the 9 consorts offend His Majesty? Now it's good, even you are implicated. She was confused at the time and only heard Nagasawa say, husband and wife are one, and we should share will and woe. Now, Zhang Xinyan also took off the light bracelet on his wrist and said to Hanzu, who looked puzzled. Husband and wife are one body, sharing will and woe, and I also want to share some of it. She is still timid and still has nightmares, but Nagasawa is moving forward. Ever since Zhang Xinyan was born, just like his mother, he was always the one left behind without a choice. This time someone was willing to pull her forward, and she wanted to follow. As soon as Zhang Xinyan recovered from her illness, she proposed to become a female soldier. Ji Cheng's thought for a few seconds and finally agreed. It's good to be a female soldier. Although you may get a little tan, getting out in the sun more can also replenish calcium, which is good for your health. Zhang Xinyan was only 16 years old at this time. In modern times, at most he was in the first grade of high school, which would be considered early military training. Now there is chaos everywhere. It's not that there are relatively powerful rebels. Ji Chang's mixed in and found out that the rebels on the left next door were called Qiu Army, and the rebels on the right were called Qiyang Army. Probably because he felt that Qiyu was a very powerful competitor, and the sun was stronger than the moon, he chose such a name in order to overwhelm the opponent in terms of power. Ji Chang's found it quite lively. He immediately followed the crowd and called Qixing Army. Inexplicably, the other rebels seemed to call them Qi XX. Although they didn't know what it meant, they always felt that they looked very majestic. The key point is that we are all rebels. You all call us Qixi and we don't. It looks like we are some kind of pheasant army. So most of the remaining rebels also became Qais. The rebel leader who called Qiu Army was still confused at first. He had no other meaning in the name. It was just that the village where he lived was called Qiu Village. Inexplicably, it went from being an exclusive trademark to being a common trademark. Ji Chang's didn't care about this. He just blends in. Among all the heroes, his army has the best reputation. Qixing Army is particularly particular. They did not attack the common people or rob them of their things. They even once passed by a village and found that the cows in the village had escaped. They politely helped drive them back and bought the chickens of the whole village before leaving. This alone makes the people who are troubled by the rebels feel favorably. Other Qixi came, the better ones only robbed, the bad ones even raped women, so now everyone is very skillful in hiding women and food in hidden places as soon as they hear the sound of a large number of footsteps. As for finding the government, it would be better for the government not to come. They are more powerful than those Qixi, and they are still wearing official cover, using the official banner. If you dare not to pay, it is illegal. Compared with them, the Qixing Army, which did not take advantage of the common people but still spent money to buy things, stood out. The other rebel teams were also jealous. But there is no way, Qixing will make money. When other armies rebelled, they would fight and fight. They would seize the place and loot it for a while, and then continue fighting. Qixing is particularly different. They rebelled with a plan and premeditated plan. They chose a city and then laid siege to the city. They went to fight the bandits around the city every day. The world was in chaos and there were more bandits. While doing this, I didn't forget to water and fertilize the fields outside the city, and wait until all the bandits were cleared before making an announcement. When they open the city gates, they don't harm any of the people. If you don't open the city gate, you will have to force your way in, and everyone will suffer losses. In that posture, it was as if he had protected the city he was interested in as his own. The people inside were surrounded for many days, watching the vicious bandits being killed every day, and the fields outside the city were particularly well maintained. People who had fields outside the city wanted to invest. You said that if their home is gone, their land is gone, and it seems that they can no longer survive, then they will still resist when the rebels attack. This house is good and the land is good, so why risk your life? Once the Qixing army operates, most of the cities will not be able to hold it. Compared with the government, the people are more willing to believe that the Qixing army has regarded them as their own people. If they don't open the city gate, even if the people riot and open it themselves, it is better for them to open it obediently. After opening the city gate, Qixing army began their magical operation. Sell goods. Yes, because everything is in chaos now. There are robbers and thieves who are just 10 steps away from home. The caravans are afraid to leave, and many supplies are naturally broken. The army needs to fight everywhere. Since he had to travel around anyway, Ji Changs would buy a bunch of cheap local goods every time he went to a new place, and then go to areas that were in urgent need of these goods and sell them at high prices. After all, so many of them are marching forward in full force. If the robbers come, it's not robbery, it's called delivering equipment. Then Ji Changs made a lot of money. After this operation happened several times, other armies also wanted to imitate him, and he immediately changed the mode. In which city does he sell which goods are the most expensive, which channel is the safest, and in which city the goods are the cheapest. After making a lot of money from those armies, he made a lot of money again. After everyone did this, business began to circulate again, and the prices of real estate and shops that Ji Changs had previously invested in various cities naturally rose. At this time, other Kixi and businessmen realized that they were sending money to Ji Changs, and that they still needed a stable local supply channel, so they began to buy shops and real estate everywhere. As a result, Ji Changs made a lot of money again. After such a series of operations, Kixing army successfully became the most generous existence among a group of Kixing. Everyone knows that Kixing army is very rich. They may not be very good at fighting, but they are willing to pay for the wives, children, and children of the soldiers. Even if someone is sacrificed, their relatives can still receive compensation. There is even news recently that they are willing to give rice noodles to everyone who joins the army. This is a huge temptation for some people who are almost unable to survive and are in urgent need of life-saving help. Kixing army has a large number of newcomers. They successfully became the largest army in Kixi. The other Kixings were greedy and felt very sad. They muttered that Kixing army had recruited so many people, and no matter how much money they had, they would probably spend it all. Once the army is poor, let's see how they can feed these people. But it's sour, and those who should copy Kixing army's methods should still be copied. Recruit people and provide food. If you have enough food, come quickly. Kixing army recruits a lot of people, right? They also recruit. Even if we don't exceed, we must not fall behind. So Ji Changs, who stocked up on a large amount of food, rice, and noodles. Another big profit. He counted the money and spread his hands helplessly. It's really strange. We are obviously in competition, but why do they spend so much time thinking about how to send me money every day? There are indeed many good people in the world. Lily free and fastest update. No anti-theft, no anti-theft. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Everyone knows I'm a good man. Author, CleverProtagonist. Chapter 514. Some Kixi people are capable, and some are not. But with so many Kixi occupying all sides, anyone with eyes can tell that Feng country is about to suffer. But the people in various places think so, but the people in the capital still think that they are okay. After all, the Feng kingdom has always been prosperous and prosperous for its people from generation to generation. Suddenly, this generation was declining at an unimaginable speed, and the emperor couldn't accept it. At this moment, he no longer thought about suppressing the mob, but in order to appease the rebels who were making trouble everywhere, he issued a sinner's edict, beheaded the dog officials who forced them to rebel, and pushed out a few high-ranking officials to block the guns. In short, what was wrong was that they were not me. My biggest mistake was that I was too kind and mistakenly trusted these dog officials who deceived the king and ignored their superiors. However, these words might have been effective at the beginning. Now, the people who were once oppressed have taken power themselves. Can you let them go with just a few words? How can it be? However, there was an incompetent Kixi who was moved and sent someone to negotiate with the court. It's okay if you want us to submit and give you an official position. The emperor agreed happily, and Chi XX, who had no ability and was just an old farmer for the first half of his life, happily submitted. As a result, the court did not behave well. Although he was indeed given an official position, he became the leader of the rebels by luck. He was an illiterate peasant himself. Such a rebellious emperor would not dare to leave people outside, so he stayed in the capital. Inside. What kind of place is that in the capital? To put it bluntly, if you throw a brick at random, 90% of the people you hit will have an official in their family. Everyone's cultural level is far superior to other cities. Not to mention in the court. Among a group of gentle literati and military attaches who could speak a few idioms, suddenly an illiterate man who couldn't read a military book came in. It's not that he has real abilities, but that he made his debut by rebelling. It's strange that other colleagues like him. You will be laughed at if you have a wrong posture when going to court, you will be called vulgar if you chirp while eating, and your old wife will be fooled and ridiculed by the female relatives when she comes to the gathering. Looking at the brothers who followed him in the past, although their chaos was of a weaker kind before, the brothers were used to being free, and everything they did was discussed and negotiated. If they didn't like living in one place, they would change places. It turned out that he became an official because of his status as the leader, but the people below him were scattered and integrated into various armies. Here is a special explanation. The reason why the imperial court was unable to defeat the rebels after successive defeats was not only because the emperor was a fool, but there was another important reason. The imperial soldiers were poorly equipped. In the beginning, Fengekuo had a specialty called corrupt officials. They were exploited layer by layer, and not many fell into the hands of the army. Later I became simply poor. Everywhere is like a sieve. Even if corrupt officials see that the situation is not right and dare not be greedy anymore, they still don't have much food. Of course, life is not easy for these rebels. The food is not as good as before, and the clothes we wear are in rags. Moreover, the superior officials looked down upon them and often bullied them. If they were still the honest farmers they had been before, they would just tolerate it. But they have already rebelled. The emperor himself lowered his head to recruit them, and now he is violating them like this. After everyone thought about it, they concluded that it would not work, and they would suffer a big loss. This is nothing like being an official. It means enduring hardship. So, these few rebelled again. But this time it wasn't as smooth as last time. After all, it was the capital city and the emperor's base camp, and since they had been scattered, it would take time to reorganize them, and it was especially easy for rumors to leak out. Before these people could gather together, they were reported first. When the emperor heard this, I bowed my head and allowed you to become an official. You actually want to rebel? He has never been so wronged in his life. There is nothing to say, drag them all out and behead them. This incident happened so quickly that even the civil and military officials of the DPRK and China were not aware of it. One by one of these rebels were all dealt with. After knowing this, some officials with flexible minds suddenly felt cold. He knew that the imperial court's tolerant policy was completely over. After all, the rebel leaders didn't care who caused this incident first. They will only see that the emperor on the front foot also said that everyone would be promoted to an official position. On the back foot, people who were deceived into the capital were chopped off. What? Are you saying they rebelled again? If you treat them well, will they rebel? These high-ranking officials are very evil-minded. They say one thing and do another, and whoever believes them is a fool. As soon as the news spread, the rebels who were still a little ready to move immediately ran faster than rabbits. After the emperor's actions, many officials were already considering retiring from illness. Seeing that Fengguo couldn't bear it anymore, they didn't want to live and die with this idiot emperor. The key is, 80% of them will die. The emperor was not very kind to them either. He usually performed a lot of suffocation, so why should they die with him? And looking at the state of the army, the soldiers don't have enough to eat and can't carry weapons. How can they deal with the rebels? Not every general will be able to make money in such a fancy way as Ji Chang's. Moreover, Ji Chang's is also very careful with his budget. Everyone knows that the Kixing army is kind. Unlike other rebels, they even take in the elderly and children. With so many mouths, how much rations will they need? Other rebels wanted to follow suit, but they had no food to spare. It is not enough to feed the army, but also to provide it to the elderly and children who do not go to the battlefield. Who can do it except the Kixing army, a rich and easy to take advantage of the enemy? But Ji Chang's, he really wasn't taken advantage of. Who said old people and children can't work anymore? While other rebels were fighting everywhere, Ji Chang specially selected cities with few people but plenty of land to station in. Others' armies wanted to fight all day long, so his army went to the ground every now and then. Before joining Kixing army, everyone was from a peasant background, and it was not easy to work in the fields. Moreover, their families also share in the food grown. The old people dried millet and taught the young people to farm. Those who didn't want to be idle would make some things of their own and put them out for sale. Ji Chang's and the others had a family, so they naturally had a place to stay. Some women stayed at home, had enough to eat and drink, and wanted to decorate their homes. Gradually, the military market flourished. The prosperity of the market is equal to the circulation of coins, so compared with other armies, Ji Chang's has another advantage. Now that the world is in chaos, even if everyone still uses money to trade, those soldiers who accept death may not be willing. They are not like the Kixing army. Their families can be taken to the rear of the army and taken care of by the superiors. They have no worries and no shortage of food and clothing. They wanted food and clothing more than money from the army. After all, as the world becomes more and more chaotic, you may not be able to buy what you want with money and no one behind you. Only food is considered hard currency. So the pressure on these armies is even greater. Money spending is still very easy to use in cities that have not yet become chaotic. But those soldiers would not recognize these words. They knew that their hometown was in chaos and money was hard to come by. They didn't need money, but they had to give them food and other things. Therefore, the landed Ji Chang's was very kind and extended a hand of friendship. It's really pitiful. Although we are in a competitive relationship, I can't bear to see their wives, children, and children starving in their hometown. I will sell food to you. What? It's 3 times more expensive than your conscience. Oh my God, can you please take a look at the situation in Feng country before saying this? The price of food is this now, I just made a slight adjustment. If you don't like it, you don't have to buy it. It's a pity. The soldiers under your command should be very disappointed to follow you. The commander who can't even guarantee basic rations, tisk tisk tisk, ergo, we can send out a leaflet, saying that everyone is welcome to join Chi Star Army. The young man who had been following Ji Chang started writing a diary again. On X month XX of X year, a certain army was short of food, and the soldiers had no rice to feed them. They came to ask for help. The young master couldn't bear it, so he nodded in agreement. The young master's kindness can be learned from heaven and earth. Someone from a certain army came to buy food, I'm still here. The young man continued to write vigorously. So and so army, what's your name? The man, Zhou Dazhuang. The young man glanced at him, and after a few seconds of strange silence again, he continued to write. A certain soldier named Zhou was so grateful that he couldn't express his gratitude. Zhou Dazhuang, wait a minute, who is so grateful? Don't write randomly, I'm obviously negotiating the price, okay. Ji Chang spread his hands, when you buy something from me, you have to be grateful. If you are not grateful, then I won't sell it to you. Ah, if you are willing to pay 5 times the price, I can still sell it to you. Zhou Dazhuang. He was so choked by these words that he couldn't respond for a long time. In the end, I had to hold my nose and admit tears of gratitude. As a farmer, he cursed all the way back and felt that the Kixing army was really sick. Rebellion relies on weapons and numbers. Day by day, they actually do some rescue and disaster relief things. After doing it, they immediately publicize it with great fanfare. What is the use? These good reputations cannot be exchanged for food. Even if everyone in the Feng Kingdom says good things about the Qixing army, is it possible that they can immediately surrender to the Qixing army as soon as they pass by? If Ji Changs knew what he was thinking, he would definitely reply. You really don't want to say that. It really works. Nowadays, when the Kixing army travels and arrives in a new city, sometimes the people inside happily open the city gates before they even start to speak. No one wants to die. Now that the imperial court has too much time to take care of itself, it can't take care of them. Robbers are raging and disasters are rampant. The common people are having a hard time. I heard that the cities where Kixing army is stationed will be taken over. Every common person who is included as one of their own can at least have enough food and clothing. Everyone sees this as the best way to survive. The other rebels couldn't control their own men. After taking the city, they burned, killed, and looted. Naturally, the people stood with Feng Guo in resistance. The Kixing army not only stopped wreaking havoc, but also distributed food to them and protected them. Because the Kixing army had always had the habit of killing robbers first when arriving in new places, the city they occupied was absolutely safe. After all, as soon as they took over, the bandits within a 10-mile radius moved quickly. Kixing Jun is sick. Besieging the city, they wanted to kill the robbers for demonstration. The city has been captured, and they want to celebrate by killing the robbers. During the New Year and the holidays, the other rebels were all enjoying good food and drinks. The Kixing army first went to wreak havoc on the surrounding bandits to make sure they were all wiped out, and then continue to eat and drink. Because the Kixing army has a damn word called performance before the year. They believe that the closer the festival is, the more vigilant they must be to prevent bandits from taking advantage of this time to cause trouble. So instead of letting the robbers ruin the festival, it would be better for them to strike first. As long as all the bandits are wiped out, won't they be safe? Robbers. In short, the common people do not understand the general trend of the world, but they know who to follow is safe. As soon as the Kixing army's reputation spreads, countless people will immediately come to vote. Whichever city the Kixing army was stationed in, those businessmen who worked conscientiously in times of chaos and never forgot to make money would immediately follow them to do business. Everyone is used to it. The Kixing army is very business-friendly, and they are keen on fighting bandits. As long as you follow the route of the Kixing army, you don't have to worry about encountering bandits. Even if the bandits who occupy the land come out to cause trouble again later and are discovered by the Kixing army, they will send people back to clear them out again. It is said that it is because they don't want others to think that their Kixing army is not capable of clearing money. Robbers. In the later stage, Ji Changs no longer needed to arrange various ways to make money. The road he paved before has been completed. As long as he makes steady progress, countless businessmen will naturally come to give money, and after they have given away the money, they will also thank Kixing army. Ji Changs happily achieved the salted fish achievement. He felt that he could retire before he took the throne. There is no way, the people under my command are too strong. The Kixing army has become a trend. It no longer develops slowly as before, but rushes forward like a tiger descending a mountain. Other rebels, is it so sudden? They have become accustomed to the daily routine of Kixing army Buddhists. Every day they just do good deeds and help the old lady cross the road. Either make money and farm. Why are you so enterprising all of a sudden? The key is that they are not only aggressive, they are really aggressive. At this time, the competitors belatedly inquired. Who is the leader of Kixing army? I do not know. No name. It's never been reported. Everyone was more or less confused. When the Kixing army's Buddhist lineage was just hanging around, no rebels regarded them as competitors. After all, although the Kixing army had many people and good weapons, they were obsessed with farming. He looked like an old farmer who had been forced to rebel. There are many such rebels. They rebel and drive away the officers and soldiers, either to claim kingship or hegemony, or to farm with peace of mind. Their attitudes are also very Buddhist. You can fight as you like, whoever wins in the end we will fight. In addition, they can also provide food and do not exclude other rebels. Everyone agrees that the Kixing army is the above type. Why did your support station suddenly reach position C? Ji Changs didn't care what the other rebels thought. It has been 3 years now. Is it easy for him to pretend to be an honest person? But there's nothing we can do about it. After all, although he has not yet conquered the world, in Ji Chang's eyes, these are his people. Since it is his people, his city, his money, and his food, of course he must take good care of it. So the pace can only be slowed down a little. Otherwise, when the world is conquered, rebuilding will be a big headache. As for the other rebels, not a big problem. Ji Changs withdrew his food supply to the rebels. His reputation as a support didn't just happen. Ji Changs conquered countless fields, and both soldiers and ordinary people in his territory were diligent in farming. The amount of food he can supply is definitely a huge amount. Although Kixing army charges a high price, they won't refuse anyone who comes. As long as you have money, you can buy as much as you like. If Ji Changs hadn't been supporting them from behind, how could these rebels have always had enough food to eat? As soon as Ji Changs took back the food supply, everyone was stunned. In the past, people outside said that Ji Changs was a kind man and that he had enough food to eat and even distributed it to others. The rebel leaders accused Ji Changs of being a profiteer and taking advantage of this moment to raise prices. But they also had to admit that if it weren't for Ji Changs, their people would definitely starve. Even though people are bitter when they hear that the leader of Kixing army is praised as the most good person in the world, but they are eating other people's food, so they don't have the right to say anything. Although I really want to scold you, the good people in your family are selling grain for 3 times the price, but this is the way of the world. There are places where you can't even buy grain with money. Ji Changs is willing to sell it, that's because he is a good person. But now, the most kind man in the world no longer sells grain. He said, "Hey, I'm really sorry. There's a war here. There are too many cities that have been conquered, and there are too many people to support. We can no longer provide for outsiders. Can you understand that? Dear friends, no matter how unstoppable they have been in the past few years, no matter how much momentum they have gained, they have stopped at this moment. Food is the most important thing for the people. Tiandu has been moved away, what else can they do? Fight against the Star Army?" Each and every one of them was strong, and regardless of the number of people, they were covered in tendon meat every day when they went to the ground. Moreover, Kixing army had been collecting copper coins, and the copper they obtained was melted and made into copper weapons. In the era of cold weapons, Ji Chang's appearance really caught everyone off guard. The rebels could only watch as he fought his way up. Seeing that the throne is about to pass them by. Are they willing? Not willing to give in. If you are not willing to give in, you will naturally do something big. A clever rebel leader immediately did something big that made other rebels' jaws drop to the ground. He ran to Ji Chang's and surrendered. It is said that if you can't sit on the throne, you can have the power of following the dragon. If you can't beat it anyway, you might as well join other rebels. This guy is really worthless and spineless. While cursing, they surrendered. Again, everyone is from ordinary people. Compared with the powerful, they don't have as much dignity as the children of the powerful. If given the chance to become emperor, who wouldn't want to? But isn't there no chance? In this case, it would not be bad to become an official. If it were anyone else, he might have hesitated. But Ji Chang's accepted everything. Before, he could operate it remotely from a distance, making these people his money bag and safe. Now that they are all in front of him, these gangsters from peasant backgrounds cannot defeat him. Only now did Ji Chang's cronies understand why their son had been so kind to these rebels in the past 3 years. They were given food and cloth. Although they had to spend money to buy them, in troubled times, money was not as important as these things. I bet he had regarded these people as his own from the very beginning. We are all our own people, so of course we need to take good care of them. It's like conquering the world. Ji Chang's is extra gentle than others. It's all his stuff, so of course he has to take good care of it. As the rebels surrendered one after another, the only obstacle became their own power, and no one could stop the Star Army anymore. The atmosphere in the capital became increasingly panicked. The people are fine. The Kixing army cannot move the people. Now everyone in the world knows this. As long as they stay quietly in the house, they can ensure safety. The ministers in the DPRK were in a panic. One after another, people began to leave the city to seek refuge. What is shocking is that the princesses' consorts and their families left the capital to seek refuge, but most of them did not plan to take the princess with them. After all, no matter how good the Kixing army is to the people, they will not be so kind to the royal family of this dynasty. If you don't run away at this time, aren't you waiting to be implicated and liquidated? Except for the 8th prince consort, when he realized something was wrong, he immediately went to find the 8th princess, intending to pack up his things and leave quickly. As a result, the 8th princess was called into the palace. To be precise, it was not just her, but all the named princesses and clan members were forcibly brought into the palace. The emperor also knew that the situation was over, but everyone else could run away, but he couldn't. He could resist for a while in the capital, but outside it would be the Kixing army's territory. He couldn't run away, and naturally he wouldn't let others leave him. The princesses were panic-stricken. They originally wanted to escape, but the prince-in-law didn't take them with him. They were shocked and planned to leave alone, when they were taken to the palace. Only then did I know that my father planned to take them with him. The emperor is already making arrangements for his funeral. The rebels will not allow the royal bloodline to survive. You are going to die anyway. It is better for us to die together as a family. The princesses looked at the closed door, all crying. They were just princesses, so they posed no threat. If they ran away, the new emperor wouldn't pursue them too closely. But their only way to survive was cut off by their father himself. The emperor actually had other ideas in his heart. The rebels are all idiots. The previous successful experience of Tianzhou Kingdom inspired him. His princesses are all beautiful and noble. Maybe the rebel leader can take a liking to them. If so, maybe his life could be saved. Moreover, he also has many beauties in his harem, all of whom are beauties. As long as the rebels are willing to let him go, he can offer these hands. With this in mind, the emperor ordered his concubines to be locked in the house. The Yingyingyanyan in this room did not believe that the rebels were not moved. One night, Ji Chang's led people into the city. This time we still encountered resistance, but there were many people and many methods. In the end, we entered the city easily and headed all the way towards the palace. When they arrived at the Suanhua store, the situation was completely under control without much effort. Concubine Yang huddled in the corner, her face full of confusion. She tried her best to drive away the 8th princess. Logically speaking, Wan Kanu and the 8th princess could no longer oppose her, and she should have everything go smoothly. Why is Feng Kingdom gone? There was a commotion outside. The door was violently broken open, and the concubines all screamed. The soldier who kicked the door open bared his teeth and covered his ears, shouting loudly toward the outside. "My lord, these are all the concubines of that dog prince. He just said he would give it all to you. Tisk, this dog emperor has a very vicious mind. He actually wants to make you work so hard for me, my lord." Ji Changs kicked him on the butt. "Shut your mouth. Move the door, I want to find someone." The door was moved open, and countless people wearing armor came in one after another. The concubines were so frightened that they all turned pale and began to shrink back. Ji Chang saw concubine Yang at a glance and had her captured. He wanted to find out where his mother-in-law was. He arranged for people to protect Wan Kanu and his uncle and aunt who stayed in the capital without knowing it. The uncle and aunt were fine, and the people were not affected. I didn't expect that the emperor gathered all the concubines in this palace. With so many people here, Ji Changs couldn't find them for a while. Concubine Yang thought they were interested in her, so she was so frightened that she screamed. "Don't catch me! Don't catch me! You catch them! They are all younger than me. They are prettier than me." She grabbed a beautiful woman and pushed her towards Ji Changs and the others. When the beautiful woman looked up, Ji Changs was pleasantly surprised. "Mother-in-law." Wan Kanu was also shocked when she saw it was him. Concubine Yang was stunned. She raised her head, looked at Wan Kanu, and then at Ji Changs, who was clearly dressed as the leader. "Wan Kanu, why are you here?" Ji Changs quickly supported her. "I'm rebelling. I just finished the rebellion and will ascend the throne soon." Concubine Yang. What the fortune teller said came to her mind. If your old enemy gives birth to a daughter, she will be destined to be a queen. In this case, you give me 500 taels of silver, and I will help you change her destiny as a queen. Concubine Yang rolled her eyes and her last thought before fainting was, "If I had known earlier, I would have borrowed that 500 taels of silver." Behe free and fastest update, no anti-theft, no anti-theft. Everyone knows I'm a good man. Author, Tan Zhong Mao. Chapter 515. Concubine Yang fell, and the other concubines were not much better. Some of them have met Ji Changs, and some have not. But I never expected that the one who rebelled would be the consort of the 9th princess who was expelled from Beijing. How could he rebel? How could he rebel? How did he succeed in his rebellion? The concubine who had bullied the 9th princess felt guilty and frightened, and a glimmer of hope rose in her heart as she was not familiar with the 9th princess at all. If the new emperor is the consort of the 9th princess, shouldn't they all be killed? Then this concubine was looked at by some educated people. "What do you mean by changing the dynasty? How could you not kill them all?" Throughout the ages, which new emperor would not wish for the death of the previous royal family? Especially the princes, as long as one or two survive, believe it or not, even if the new emperor ascends the throne, they will be able to toss around for at least several decades under the banner of repeated XX. The concubine was only pretty in appearance. Although she read a lot, she was not very favored. She had been living in seclusion in her own palace and had never seen the 9th princess at all. But she had already foreseen the future of the 9th princess. Just wait and see, the 9th prince consort becomes the new emperor, and he will never leave any offspring with the 9th princess. It's like if the new emperors who successfully rebelled in the past took the princess of the previous dynasty as their concubine, they would never make her son the prince. Otherwise, wouldn't it be that rebellion creates loneliness? The concubine who listened to her words was still a little unconvinced. The 9th prince consort fell in love with the 9th princess at first sight and was so infatuated that it became a legend among the people. Now that he has ascended the throne, I think the 9th princess's good days are coming. The highly educated concubine thought her idea was too beautiful. Just looking at the history books, which emperor was really infatuated? No matter how infatuated a person is, once he becomes an emperor, he will no longer be satisfied with just one princess. Because of the news that the ninth prince consort is actually the new emperor who succeeded in the rebellion, many concubines had a layer of hope in their hearts, and the atmosphere became less desperate. When concubine Yang woke up, she felt extremely desperate. Especially when several low-ranking concubines who didn't know the inside story ran up to her and flattered her. The ninth princess grew up in the palace of the empress. The marriage with the ninth prince-in-law was also facilitated by the empress. She will definitely be grateful to the empress. Yes, when His Majesty wanted the ninth princess to marry Li Chuan, it was the empress who begged to stop it. If not for this, the ninth princess would not have such great luck today. Concubine Yang. These concubines didn't talk much, but their words touched my heart. One bite. Now that I think about it carefully, it seems that the ninth prince consort didn't show any difference when he was in the capital. He must have started acting after leaving the capital. Then the empress can be regarded as half a noble of the nine prince consort. Yes, that must be the case. When the ninth prince consort ascends the throne, he has something to do with the empress. Concubine Yang, who really participated in the whole process, don't open your mouth if you don't know how to speak. The few concubines looked at each other in confusion, wondering why concubine Yang still looked like she had no love in her life when she had done good deeds and the new emperor would definitely be grateful to her. After a while, another look of realization dawned on his face. Your Majesty, you are neither happy with things nor sad with yourself. She is truly a model for us. You do this without being ostentatious. The empress manner is indeed beyond our comparison. Concubine Yang was almost angry to death from them. She wanted to jump up and kick everyone one by one. Then he yelled. Are you out of your mind or blind? My son can be crowned the prince and become the winner. If I wait a few more years until that dead old man dies, I will be the queen mother. Do you think I should be happy when I see that I was rebelled at the last moment? But in reality, she didn't even have the strength to move. My mind is full of. Zhang Xinyan is really going to become the queen. Is this destiny? 500 taels. If she had spent those 500 taels, would her fate have been different? It's only 500 taels short. She was troubled here, but Wan Kanu over there finally met her daughter. After not seeing each other for 3 years, Zhang Xinyan has grown taller and his body is not as weak as before. Although his temper is still gentle, there is no longer any inferiority complex between his eyebrows. She is 19 years old this year, and her appearance has opened up. Compared to her previous look, which was a little childish, she is now a very bright beauty, the wheat-colored skin version. There is no way around it. People who join the army are exposed to wind and sun every day. Even if she takes good care of herself, her skin will still be smooth, but tanning is unavoidable. Compared with his wife, Ji Chang's complexion is as white as snow. He is the most lazy and doesn't want to bask in the sun. Now it seems that the two people's styles have been swapped. Wan Kanu didn't care about this. There was only one thought in her mind. Her daughter is back fine. The mother and daughter held hands and looked at each other, with tears falling all over their faces. In the past 3 years, Wan Kanu has been thinking about her daughter a lot. She looks much older, but time is always kind to beauties. Although she has gray hair, she is still as beautiful as ever. Now with trembling lips and tears in her eyes, she reached out and touched her daughter's cheek. It's okay, it's okay. It's okay. Although it's a little darker, I look healthier than before. Ji Chang squeezed over and said, Mother-in-law, I'm fine too. Only then did Wan Kanu notice that there was a son-in-law next to her, and she felt another wave of care. After the two got married, Wang Cai's daughter fell in love with her son-in-law. Every time she saw her son-in-law, she cared for her sincerely. Now she also wants to say a few words of concern. The result was Ji Chang's. The skin is white and tender, and the face looks like it has never experienced any weather. One look at it shows that he has not endured much hardship. After holding it in for a long time, he finally said, "The prince-in-law looks a lot whiter." Yes, yes, I have a lazy temperament and don't like to be active in the sun, so I have been a little bit older. This is more than just making you whiter. His whole body turned 3 shades white. Haven't seen each other for 3 years. Logically speaking, he, a rebel leader who should be busy planning all kinds of things, has suddenly developed the appearance of a young man who knows no worries. It looks much smaller than before. Wang Cain looked at her daughter who had grown a lot in 3 years and was now 2 heads taller than her. Zhang Xinyan smiled brightly at his mother, showing 8 standard white teeth, and his whole body was filled with refreshing energy. If someone who didn't know saw her, they would definitely think that she was a girl from the desert. Zhang Xinyan was still showing off how powerful he was now. "Mother, you don't know that I have already drawn the 10-stone bow." Ji Chang's nodded cooperatively at the side. "Yes, mother-in-law, the princess is born with supernatural powers. In just 3 years, she can lift 10 stones. Zhang Xinyan, I can lift that big cauldron outside effortlessly. Everyone in our military camp admires me. Even the male soldiers can't compare to me." Ji Chang's, "Yes, yes, I can't even compare to the princess." Wang Cain. Although the daughter looked excited, the son-in-law also looked proud. But is this conversation the other way around? Ji Chang's didn't think there was a problem at all. Zhang Xinyan's inferiority complex lies in the fact that from birth to growing up, she has been slandered and belittled by those around her. It's easy for her to build up her self-confidence, just develop one of her strengths. After experiments, Ji Chang's discovered that although Zhang Xinyan had always been soft and weak, her physical strength and endurance were stronger than others after training. The summary is that, looking ordinary, the bottom line is unlimited. In the army, he would definitely be a good candidate. She practiced with more weight, day after day, year after year. It only takes 3 years to reach this level. The soldiers in Kixing army are very simple. If you are strong, they will worship you. At first, Zhang Xinyan only made a name for herself in the female army. Later, male and female soldiers began to compete. Zhang Xinyan became famous in one competition. As more and more people admired her and treated her as a strong person, Zhang Xinyan's mentality gradually changed. She no longer feels inferior and no longer worries. Wouldn't it be nice to train it every day? She loved the feeling of going back to take a shower and falling asleep after a hard day's work. Ji Chang's agreed very much. Especially after Zhang Xinyan showed his talent in military affairs. He still speaks plausibly. As the saying goes, husband and wife are one. He leads troops and Zhang Xinyan leads troops, isn't that the same effect? The only pity is that Zhang Xinyan's main talent lies in physical fitness, and he still needs Ji Chang's remote command in normal battles. Otherwise it would be easier for him. However, Zhang Xinyan's contribution to the rebellion was absolutely outstanding. Ji Chang's balabala told Wang Cain all this as if showing off. Wang Cain, like a dream. Before she could get used to my weak, helpless daughter has turned into a female general, she was shocked by Ji Chang's words. Me? Queen Mother? But, aren't you the one who ascended the throne? Ji Chang's nodded, it's me, but my parents died early, and I became husband and wife with the princess. In fact, before, I planned to let the princess ascend the throne. But firstly, Zhang Xinyan can't make a fool of herself. Secondly, she is the royal daughter of this generation. If she ascends the throne, it will not be easy to change her previous affairs. Thirdly, Zhang Xinyan's ambition is to fight everywhere and become the emperor. But you can't run around. Ji Chang's told Wang Cain their couple's plan for the next 20 years. We will have a baby next year, and we will use these 20 years to govern the world and recover the lost cities. In 20 years, Xinyan and I will be 40, and we want to go overseas. Zhang Xinyan was a little shy when showing her strong friendship and perfect trust with her husband to her mother. Mother, you can now live a long life. Wang Cain was in a state of confusion. It's all wonderful. Beautiful, like an illusion. How could there be such a good person in this world? He was actually willing to give up the throne for her daughter. Wang Cain thanked concubine Yang for the first time. Thanks to her for taking the trouble to choose a commoner prince-in-law for her daughter. The consort really did his best for her daughter. The night passed, and the next morning, the Kixing army cleaned up the mess. The emperor should have followed the ancestral precepts. If the country perishes, the emperor should commit suicide with dignity, but he really couldn't do it, and he had a hope in his heart that the new emperor could keep him in order to win over the old ministers and have a good reputation. Life. Then, he learned that it was the 9 prince consort who rebelled. It is impossible to describe how the emperor felt in his heart when he found out about this. Although he had no brains to commit suicide, he was not stupid. He treated the 9th princess so badly and even drove the 2 of them out of the capital. He knew that there was no way that Ji Chang's would stop rebelling if he bowed his head and admitted his mistake. Now we can only hope that for the sake of the blood relationship between father and daughter, Ji Chang's will not kill them all. Ji Chang's ascended the throne, and the 9th princess became the queen. Then he is the queen's father. No matter, even if he is imprisoned for a lifetime, that would be fine. The emperor of the previous generation, who had given up all his dignity in order to survive, begged Ji Chang's. Just ban me. I promise not to think about anything else. I know this child's character best. Although we don't see each other very often, she admires me and I love her from the bottom of my heart. This child was so well behaved when she was born. When she grows up, she is babbling. I can still remember the quietness of the cardamom years. If you killed her biological father, what would she think of you? Zhang Xinyan came in from the door. I think Nagasawa killed well. The emperor was frightened and angry. Who are you? It's none of your business that I'm talking to my son-in-law. After scolding this person, he turned to Ji Chang's with a loving face. In fact, I have always loved Xiaju in my heart. After all, it is my own flesh and blood and family ties. If Xiaju were here, he would also feel that what I said was right. Ji Chang's couldn't help laughing. The emperor looked puzzled when he was laughed at. Zhang Xinyan slowly stepped forward and stared at the emperor carefully. In the past, she was so afraid of this aloof father. Every time he looked at him with such disgust, she wanted to find a gap in the ground and crawl in. But now when she looked back, she realized that he was just an ordinary old man who was afraid of death. Still ridiculous. It's so ridiculous that you can't even recognize your biological daughter right in front of you, and you're actually trying to talk about blood ties. Princess, you still need to be accommodated outside. Just go ahead and I'll take care of it here. Ji Chang's voice came from behind. Zhang Xinyan turned around and smiled at him. Okay. She strode toward the palace door without hesitation. The emperor was shocked when he heard Ji Chang speak. You Xiaju? Xiaju, please save my father, please save my father. Zhang Xinyan didn't even pause for a moment and left Suanhua Hall. Seeing that she was really unwilling to save him, the emperor knelt down on the ground slumped. Ji Chang spoke, don't worry, I don't plan to kill you. But it's not like this guy thinks he'll be rich until he dies of old age. Aren't you keen on sending princesses to get married? Since you came to the throne, you have sent out 5 sisters, 1 daughter, and 13 clan princesses. Since the princesses can sacrifice for the Feng kingdom, so can your majesty. The emperor looked at him in disbelief. I am a man, how can I get married? Ji Chang's, women can get married, why can't men? The emperor trembled. I, I am nearly 50 this year, how can I? When Princess Leahy lost her husband at the age of 39, she had no children. Logically speaking, she should be sent back to the capital to support her. Didn't His Majesty grant a marriage to Princess Leahy and marry the new king? Princess Leahy was very favored by the late emperor, but as soon as the late emperor left, the emperor immediately married her sister to the distant country of Siam. There was civil strife in Siam, and the husband of Princess Leahy was assassinated by the new king. As a result, the emperor turned around and said that he married her to the enemy who killed her husband for the sake of peace between the two countries. This matter was rarely discussed in the capital, and now that it came out of Ji Chang's mouth, it only made the emperor feel horrified. The two princes took human life lightly and caused many lives. There is no need for a marriage, they can just be executed directly. If your majesty does not want a marriage, then I can execute you. The emperor's face turned pale, and he saw that Ji Chang's was not just talking, so he could only shake his body. Well, let's get married. So, as soon as the new emperor officially ascended the throne, he did something that shocked everyone in the world. Instead of killing the old emperor, he prepared a dowry for him and sent it to Rao Ziguo to get married. It is worth mentioning that in Rao Ziguo, women are respected. The old emperor went as a servant. And the person he wants to marry is an aristocratic girl who has just turned 20 this year and has countless husbands in the backyard. I wonder what kind of life the old emperor, who is almost 50 this year, with white hair, no gentle temperament, and no ability to recite poetry or paint, will live there. Of course, before considering these, he had to experience the hardships along the way, the pain of not being able to speak the local language and being acclimatized to a new place, and the tragic situation of once being a noble and aloof person, but now he had to compete with a group of men for favor, but he couldn't compete. The old emperor was sent out of the capital under the gaze of the people. How red his eye is, how green his face is. The people have quickly adapted to the new emperor's rule. After all, everything is still the same as before. They have become addicted to gossip. The new emperor turned out to be the 9th prince consort who was driven out of the capital. After the 9th prince consort was kicked out, he came back as the new emperor. So it was really him taking revenge when the emperor was sent to get married, right? Who doesn't know that when the 9th princess was deprived of her status as a princess and expelled from the capital together with the 9th prince consort, it was because the old emperor wanted her to get married to the 9th prince consort. As a result, the 9th prince consort came back and sat on the throne himself, and sent him to marry him. Revenge, cliffhanger is revenge. Some people think Ji Chang's is too impulsive. How could the old emperor be spared his life? While the previous emperor was still there, it was inevitable that there would be no trouble. Moreover, if he was sent for marriage, what if the country on the other side of the marriage had any thoughts and planned to use the old emperor to do something? Faced with these suggestions, Ji Chang's had one attitude. Panic with a hammer. As long as we are strong enough, it will be useless no matter how much other people think about us. Advisor, this is too confident. It is certainly a good thing that the new emperor is young, but young people are prone to being too impetuous. It has always been a cultural tradition to kill everyone who successfully rebelled. Why did he end up here? Except for killing 2 princes, he didn't kill anyone else. He had to be sentenced according to the crime according to the law. Those who commit crimes should be sentenced accordingly. Those who have not committed any crime can be dealt with casually. Those 5 princesses could be so cruel to their biological sisters. Of course their hands were not clean. Some of them were executed and some were exiled. The eldest princess and the second princess have clean hands, but they have lost their status as princesses and will become commoners in the future. However, they have help from their mother's family, so their lives are not bad. As for their prince-in-law, after the new emperor ascended the throne, he came back to serve. As a result, he was prosecuted and the whole family was imprisoned. As for the 8th princess, she still has some friendship with Jiang Xinyan. In addition, not only has she not committed any crime, but she also often gives porridge. She is a major benefactor of the orphanage, and her mother is the princess of the Lin Kingdom. And darling. Ji Chang's thought for a few seconds, then turned around and sent a letter to Linguo. After a sum of money was sent there, Ji Chang's made the 8th princess the princess, which was regarded as giving her an identity by receiving money. His uncle and aunt were probably the most shocked by this rebellion. The two raised their nephew and loved him as their own son. When their nephew married the princess, they were shocked. Later, when their nephew was kicked out of the capital, they also felt uncomfortable. Knowing that Ji Chang's had friends outside to take care of him and that he was living a good life, they felt at ease. When they knew that the new emperor's rebellion was successful, they still thought of sending a letter to say that the previous emperor was no longer the emperor and had been sent to make peace. Naturally, what he said will not count. You and the princess can come back to the capital to reunite with us. The result was just one night's work. They were told that the new emperor was their nephew, the second elder. Until they were taken to the palace, they still hadn't come back to their senses. Ji Chang's kept his word. He said that others would not dare to have dissent, and he really managed the country like this. He and Jiang Xinyan can be said to be the emperors and empresses with the highest reputation among the people in history. After all, he can pack. Everyone knows that His Majesty works hard to govern, loves the people wholeheartedly, and is the most benevolent emperor. The empress, on the other hand, fought bravely and fought back bit by bit the lost territory of the country. Women's status gradually improved, and the empress was definitely responsible for most of it. She is a role model for all women. Your Majesty and the Queen have only one daughter. She has been the crown princess since birth. It is said that many ministers objected at that time, saying that their country had never heard of a woman becoming emperor. His Majesty the Emperor said, "It turns out that this is why you are opposed. It can be easily handled. I will pass the throne to the Queen. From now on, the Queen will be the Empress and I will be the Emperor's husband. Isn't there a precedent for a woman to become the Emperor?" Ministers. Then he ignored those who had remonstrated and passed the throne directly to the Queen. The Queen Mother had just finished her confinement period and ascended the throne as Emperor. After half a year, when she was about to go out to fight, she passed the throne to His Majesty again and became the Queen again. The people all over the country were dumbfounded by the actions of the Emperor's family. After this incident, the ministers also found that this family could not use common sense to deduce. They could only put their hope in the princess, hoping to teach a normal future empress who fit their image of an emperor. But now it seems that due to the influence of her parents, Tai Nuqiang is very strong, but her thinking is also very different from ordinary people. Especially behind her were the Queen Mother and Her Majesty's uncle and aunt, Prince Li and Princess Li. With these three great gods together, it would be difficult to get around them. After that, it just fell into place. According to Ji Chang's plan. Now that his daughter has grown up and ascended the throne as Empress, he can finally take advantage of her. Before leaving for overseas, he suddenly thought of someone. Where are concubine Yang and your scumbag father? Are they not dead yet? Jiang Xinyan didn't know that she was so busy every day that she had no time to think about others. The people below checked it out. The old emperor died after 5 years of marriage. I am afraid that when he reaches the underworld, he will no longer say that those sisters who died after only a few years of marriage were too squeamish. Concubine Yang was originally sentenced to be exiled to work as a coolie, but she was still pretty good. She was sent to do the life-consuming work of digging coal until now. I guess I still have a few good years to live. After Ji Chang's and Jiang Xinyan heard this, they went to sea without any interest. The day after they left, at Maishan, concubine Yang was coughing while working, and her whole body was trembling with exhaustion. She wanted to live. She must live. As long as she's not dead, she still has a chance to make a comeback. When she escapes from here, she will immediately go to the fortune teller. Even if she sells herself, she must collect enough money to change her life. That gentleman is so efficacious. As long as you find him, you can definitely change your life. Concubine Yang was cheering herself up while working when she suddenly saw another group of prisoners sent by the official. The prisoners were quickly assigned tools and dragged themselves to work with grimaces. Concubine Yang was also divided into several people. She heard one of the women ask, "You are still sent here at such an old age. What did you do?" "Hey, bad luck. I usually make a living by telling people's fortunes. Last time, I just casually told someone that her daughter would be a queen when she grew up, but it turned out to be a boy." "What do you mean the boy is wearing pigtails?" "His father thought I was scolding his son to be a rabbit master, so he beat me up and reported me to the police. When I ended up in prison, I casually said that a man in the prison had a daughter who could be a queen when she grew up. In order to go out and give birth to his daughter, he dug a tunnel and ran out, and he had to drag me up. As a result, he was caught red-handed. No, he could have been released after a few years of imprisonment, but now at such an old age, he was sent to dig coal." The old man shook his head and sighed. "I just said that casually. I say that to everyone. Why do they take it so seriously?" "Huh." He suddenly noticed Concubine Yang, who suddenly turned her head to look at him with shock on her face, and looked up and down. "This mother-in-law, you look very familiar." Then, the old man, who was a fortune teller by profession and a gangster by profession, opened his eyes in horror. You, why is the corner of your mouth bleeding?" Concubine Yang wiped the corners of her mouth with trembling hands, and she saw bright red blood. She trembled with her lips, recalling all the events in her life, and facing the fortune teller, she spoke the last words of her life in her native dialect. "You, turtle grandchild." Boom. Concubine Yang died. Bahi free and fastest update, no anti-theft, no anti-theft. Everyone knows I'm a good man. Author, CleverProtagonist. Chapter 516. Does anyone want to discuss the legendary fortune teller? As soon as this post appeared in the history discussion group, a lot of people showed up even though it was late at night. It's coming again, I'll give it a try every once in a while. Fire pliers looming. I think it is better to Tao Ji Chang's and Zhang Xinyan, a godlike couple, than to Tao the fortune teller. Wherever there is an empress, there is me. Long live the empress. Standard terms used upstairs. There are so many empresses, you should add a prefix, otherwise you may be dragged into the opponent's group. Thanks for the reminder, long live Emperor Xin. I digress, everyone, isn't this post about fortune tellers? At this moment, a passerby passed by, asked me, "What fortune teller are you talking about? Newcomers, please give me a pat." Sure enough, he is a newbie. Even the fortune teller doesn't know about it. Who can give him some knowledge? I come. As everyone knows about Emperor Z, and everyone knows about Emperor Xin, before the two of them started fighting, they lived a very ordinary life, and the Queen Mother was just a very unpopular daughter-in-law. According to records, the life of mother and daughter at that time pretty bleak. Why? Because Concubine Yang, the birth mother of the eldest prince at that time, targeted them and dug up a tomb of thousands of criminals from ancient times. It was the place where the criminals at that time died and were buried. As a result, they dug up Concubine Yang. There was a bamboo slip hidden on Concubine Yang. After recovery, experts announced the contents. It recorded that Concubine Yang had received a fortune teller's words, saying that the daughter born to Wankenu would be the queen. She wanted to escape and find her. The fortune teller changed his fortune because he was going blind. He wrote down the fortune teller's characteristics. The passerby didn't understand. It's just the queen's destiny. It doesn't prove that the fortune teller is really powerful, right? maybe he was blinded. Tisk, 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 if it's just this one thing, of course no one will talk about it. What's the point? She is the only daughter of Emperor Ze and Emperor Xian, Emperor Yu. She was born as a princess. It stands to reason that the chosen imperial husband should be a person of high status, right? But she happened to fall in love with an Orion during a patrol for her father. Key point, when Orion was still young, a fortune teller concluded that he was destined to be a queen. At that time, the concubine had not yet ascended the throne. Orion and his family thought it was a liar and did not take it seriously. As a result, the concubine became the queen, and he actually became the concubine. Royal husband. Passerby, maybe it's a coincidence? Don't worry, I haven't finished yet. After the fortune teller determined that Orion would become the queen in the future, he was reported to the government by Orion's family. He told a prisoner in prison that his daughter would grow up to be a queen. Guess what? This prisoner was sent into exile for 20 years because of his escape. He returned to his hometown to get married and have a daughter at the age of 51. The Sen Emperor, who was just a child at the time, went hunting there and was in danger, and it was this girl who saved him. Later, when the prisoner reached old age and died within 2 years, the girl was left alone. The Moon Emperor was grateful to her for saving his son, so he took her into the palace to raise her. As a result, she and the Sen Emperor's childhood sweethearts fell in love with each other. Mensin, a passerby, understood now. But he still felt a little unbelievable. Could it be that their fortune teller is the same person? Boss, just one person. The recorded appearance, features, and age are completely consistent. There is a big black mole on the nose, squinting eyes, and a stooped back. Originally, it was a coincidence after both queens were discovered to be the same fortune teller. However, when concubine Yang's side was exposed a while ago, this fortune teller is definitely very capable. However, someone silently raised his hand. But my hometown is over there because I was the first to respond to Emperor Ze's policy. I have always been very wealthy. There are some rumors passed down from generation to generation in my family. It is said that after the fortune teller's incident came to light, the imperial capital sent people to investigate Pass. But the result of the investigation was that the fortune teller told everyone that the queen was destined to be the queen, and it was completely blind. What this means is that it is not the fortune teller who is accurate, but his bets. He just happened to meet the 3 queens. But apparently, no one wanted to believe him. Ha 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 ha, can this be fooled? You can reveal the 3 queens to me. Even elementary school students will not believe that this is deceitful. Don't talk about elementary school students, I won't believe it. This elder brother was very aggrieved. My dad really told me that. He said that my grandfather told him that that fortune teller almost told all the girls under the age of 18 in 8 villages across 10 miles. Ha 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 ha, that's too exaggerated. Do you believe it? I don't believe it anyway. That fortune teller is definitely a very capable person. Unfortunately, I don't know his name. I have established a fortune teller discussion group. Let's chat there in the future. In ancient times, there were really all kinds of masters. Why are today's fortune tellers inaccurate? Is it because they don't have enough spiritual energy? I think we should discuss that. Emperor Zed strongly supported women's employment and gradually raised the status of women to the same level as men. There is nothing to discuss about women's status being the same as men's. We have been like this for almost 1,000 years. We might as well discuss that country's. I heard that their country defaults to women doing housework and taking care of children. Oh my god, it's been a few years. There is actually such a thing. The person upstairs thinks that equality between men and women is commonplace because they have lived in such an environment since childhood. In fact, before Emperor Ze ascended the throne, the status of women in our country was really low. I digress. Everyone, fortune teller, by the way, does anyone know where he ended up? Last time I saw an expert saying that he was sent to dig coal. Don't be ridiculous, how can such an awesome fortune teller really dig coal? I must have thought of a way to escape and ran away. Yes, he must have run away. And 1,000 years ago. Ji Changs and Zhang Xinyan were traveling somewhere and saw a tombstone with many worship supplies in front of it. It is said that this is the tomb of a fortune teller who was very accurate in fortune telling. He was a local coal mining prisoner. After his death, he was originally buried in a mass grave. But when it came out that Empress Mori, husband of the Moon Emperor, was destined to be an empress, some people remembered this fortune teller. The local people thought he was so awesome when he was alive. He would definitely be more awesome if he died. So they worshipped one after another. Ji Changs laughed it off after hearing this. He and Zhang Xinyan were both very old. Seeing the beautiful scenery here, they found a village to settle down. 5 years later, the two died in their sleep. Ji Changs opened his eyes and saw darkness. He was stunned for a second, and then asked with rare anticipation, "Do I have enough points?" The system, which I haven't seen for a long time, responded quickly. Now the host has accumulated enough points to fulfill his wish. The main props cost a lot of points, so even if Ji Changs has never failed, it took him a long time to accumulate the points he has now. Good. Ji Changs smiled. Then let my wish come true. The mechanical sound system paused for a moment. Host, do you really want to do this? Ji Changs, isn't this agreed upon before? The system was silent for several seconds before saying, yes. The host has accumulated enough wish fulfillment points. As agreed, the system will erase your existence in the main world. Please make your final choice whether to delete it or not. Ji Changs answered in the darkness. Yes, Bahi free fastest update without anti-theft.